Fine. I fucking give up. Fuck. Still getting used to this. Being a mortal thing again.
My colleagues and I have put an end to a lot of legendary red suits these last few weeks. But I can honestly say, up until now, I didn't understand where this modern Corvette that was hunting on Damien's road had come from.
I inherited it from him. I'm not really a legend.
Who are you?
Zeke.
Okay, Zeke. How did you end up as the devil of the East Tex Highway?
It's a long story.
Then make it count. Because it's the last time you'll ever have to tell it.
Shall we make history?
Mayor Husto has been seen on the streets alongside a dozen of his Templar troops as they lead an offensive against the dead.
This Red Death will be worse than anything we have seen yet.
How is it even possible to exist in the realm of the living and the realm of the dead at the same time?
This is why I was brought back. 447 is more than just a number.
The conquest starts now.
Eddie, don't go back. Not when you have finally found a place where we can be together.
Just as predicted. They are perfect. No light will save anyone from them.
These peelers are multiplying at a rate that will destroy mankind if we do not get my serum mass-produced soon.
This is the calm before the storm. This is the end times. So join us.
My scarred ones will live and fight through the anathema and beyond.
Only death will remain.
So, I guess it all began with the American legend, the icon, and one of the most recognized names in automobile history, the Corvette. Yeah, I thought this was the car dreams are made of. I mean, I have always been a car guy. Just not the wrench-turning type, you know?
No.
Alright, well, I'm more the aesthetic appreciating, performance pursuing, the dynamically driven type of car guy. The moment Prince started singing about that little red Corvette while I rode in the back of my dad's old Monte Carlo, bam! It hit me. Even at the tender age of 6, I was sold. Sign me up.
Okay, I get it. You like fast cars. But that can't be why you became a Rotandan.
It's not. I grew up in a shithole lake town in deep East Texas. Not even worth naming, honestly, but it was all I knew. And my parents did the best they could do with the means we had. My father ran a small lawn service and loved his beat-up Chevy truck, the one that he used to pull those mowers with. Lawn mowers that were always breaking down, by the way. My mother held lots of miserable, menial, minimum wage jobs, so I barely saw either of them. However, my sister and I were very close, even though she was almost 8 years older than me. She got her hardship driver's license at 15 to help out my parents. My dad let her drive the old Monte Carlo to get Mom and her back and forth to work. She was on the work program at her school and only went for half days in her junior year so she could work at Dairy Queen for credit hours. Zara was sweet, and I loved her so much. She was the best big sister, but she never made it to her senior year.
What happened to her?
She died on the night of my 11th birthday in a real bad car accident. Rolled the Monte Carlo after being struck in the rear. You know, even all these years later, I still blame myself. She was on the way to Chap's Cafe from my meager little birthday gathering. The sheriff said she died in the ambulance on the way to the county hospital, and they never caught the person that sent the money into such a deadly pivot. The next day, we went to the salvage yard to see the Monte Carlo, and my dad just started screaming in pain. He was raving about not being able to afford something safer. This was his fault, and how he had failed as a father. All I could do was sing Little Red Corvette under my breath, sobbing, just longing for one more family ride with my sister.
It's hard losing a loved one. So, what brought you to Morston?
Money. Well, and the promise of it. As the years passed, the hits kept coming, so I moved out of my parents' trailer and went south to our big, bad, busy Bayou City. But that didn't help. In fact, it was just a different kind of pain with the same symptoms. I was broke, lonely, and stuck in a one-bedroom, roach-infested apartment. But you know Morston. The city has the nation's 4th largest population, but America's worst mass transit system. So I had to get a car.
But a Corvette? I thought you said you were broke.
I was. And no, I didn't have the Grand Sport yet. This was before. But did I go with a cheap gas-saving second-hand foreign sedan? Hell no! I bought the closest thing to a Corvette I could afford back then. A 2000 model Chevy Camaro Z28 in cayenne red. This puppy had problems everywhere, and I mean everywhere. But not the LS1 powered V8. Damn, it was fast. But boy did it need AC. I probably could have fixed it if I didn't get so many damn tickets in the thing, but it sure did make driving to my job a lot more fun.
Huh. That's funny. I have a friend with a very similar Camaro. So, what did you do before you were stalking these highways?
I was a bookkeeper for a big used car dealership on the east side of the city. Yeah, you know, those gritty buy here, pay here, and your job is your credit kind of places. Yeah, I was putting that bachelor's degree ball and chain to great use. The store was one of many owned by wall vaults, like the supermarket, believe it or not, but you wouldn't know it looking at the place. They kept the books tight and pay even tighter. The dealer principal, my boss, was an overweight, over-the-top, and overrated guy named Grover McGee. And yeah, I would whistle the Sesame Street theme while working with him just to piss him off.
Clever. Is this the dealership where you got the Corvette? Doesn't sound like that kind of store.
No, that place only stocked miled-out, used-up junk.
Okay. Where did you get it then?
Well, after 2 years there, I finally got a long overdue and much-needed 2-week vacation, so I planned on going back home to see my folks. It was an annual thing to have dinner on my birthday, and I'd missed the gathering last year due to Grover and his micromanaged schedule and not having any time off to spend. However, that year, nothing was going to stop me. I would not miss Zara's anniversary. Not again. The dinner at Chap's Cafe went well. It was sad to see my parents' age setting in more, and they ended up turning in early. After they left, I sat in my car thinking of what Zara would be like today. You know, we were so different growing up. Mom always said it was her fault due to our strange Z names and our initials. She was Zara Ingrid Graves, and I'm Zeke Austin Graves. Or as Mom used to say, her little Zig and Zag. As I started becoming more nostalgically teary-eyed, I got out of my Camaro, not wanting to leave just yet. I needed to clear my head before the long drive back south. And now, Chaps is right next door to the local Chevy dealer in my hometown, so I thought I would look around there to walk off my meal. That way, I wouldn't be as sleepy on the way home. After a few minutes of looking through rows and rows of white and silver four-wheel drive trucks, I was about to leave when I saw it. The Chevy of my dreams. A 2017 torch red Corvette Grand Sport. Shit, that car was beautiful. Now, I thought it was odd that a car like this was even at such a small dealer, and even more odd that it was not inside on the showroom floor. As I was basically sticking my face to the driver's side glass, being dumbstruck by the red leather guts of the car, I was startled by footsteps approaching me.
Hello and welcome to Pineway Chevrolet. My name is Damien. You are...
Zeke. I figured y'all would be closed at this hour.
Let's just say I'm the late shift. But that's a nice Grand Sport, Zeke. You want to take it home?
Yeah, man, I wish. This is my dream car. As he was placing a greasy palm on his rear windshield, just staring at me in the eyes, he tapped his sharpened nails on the glass. But when he spoke, his tone was that of pure confidence and patience. This was very strange since it was so late. I thought he would have been aggravated at me, a toothpick-wearing, full-bellied guy who obviously could not afford what he was looking at. He had to know I was just dreaming, right? Well, if he did, then it didn't deter him. His eyes glowed with the hungry intensity of a commission-driven man. Damien didn't just broom me off the front porch like a giant wood roach. In fact, he opened the front door and let me in. His next words made me really believe he was serious.
Well, Zeke, it just so happens I'm in the dream car business. So you're going to be selling or keeping your current vehicle?
Damien said this with a smirk on his face that now revealed all of his yellow-stained teeth, and they seemed to be sharper looking than they were earlier. He handed me his card, and that's when I noticed his red suit had faint sweat stains all over it, as if it hadn't been cleaned in years. His weathered skin was wrinkled and sun-scorched. There was a salty smell emanating from him, and you could tell that he'd been trying to cover it up with some strong, cheap dollar store-grade cologne. My attention, however, kept drifting over to that artfully engineered piece of performance perfection he was clicking his nails on. My Camaro? Damien, that old F-body isn't worth much, and I don't want to waste any more of your time, sir. I think I should be getting on down the road. Thanks a lot, though. She sure is a beauty. I tried turning around, pocketing his card, and shaking off the crazy notion that I could ever own a Corvette, let alone a 2LT Grand Sport. I really felt bad wasting his time, but then Damien said the words that I should have run from.
Aw, come on, Zeke. We can make this happen. The devil is only in the details, after all.
Are you for real?
Yes, I am. If you really want.
To hell with it. I'm game. Let's give it a shot.
My thoughts exactly, Zeke. You only live once.
Damien gestured towards the only office with a light on in the building behind us. Now, like I said, I work for a dealership, and though it only sells used cars, I know how long a car deal can take. Forever, right? This was not the case with Damien at all. I was in and out of there in just over 2 hours. That's right, he did it. I was approved for a brand new 2017 Chevy Corvette Grand Sport, and he even gave me $15,000 for my old Camaro. And though I was sad to see my old Z28 go, his offer was 2 times the car's current retail value, and I would have been stupid to not take that kind of deal. You know?
If something sounds too good to be true, then...
It probably is. Yeah, I know. But I was very impressed and just overly excited. He did all the financing paperwork himself. In fact, he was the only person left there, and I never saw anyone else. I didn't think it was too odd because a few of the salesmen at the store I work for are licensed to do finance and insurance contracts too. Not to mention it being a weekend night. I was sure everyone bolted as soon as they could. I thought Damien was just an overachiever. The finance contract was through a bank called First Rotandon and Trust. I found it peculiar that in all the contracts I had filed over the years, I'd never heard of them. But I knew there were a few private financial institutions out there that specialized in high-end vehicle loans. The most of them are heavily backed and know that if the car repos, they have a prime vehicle that they can turn around and sell out of quickly. Plus, at the price Damien sold me the Vet for and the amount he gave for the Camaro, the bank was sitting in a great equity position on this loan. This deal was a no-brainer. The only moment my gut sank was when he told me the payment. It was 1/3 of my monthly salary before tax. But I didn't care. I would make my money stretch. You only live once, he had said. And I was on board completely. Damien warned me that this bank was highly pursuing when it came to people that were first payment defaults, which means that unlike most banks that stick the dealer with a terminated contract if a customer doesn't make their first payment, Rotandon and Trust was assuming all liability. Yeah, man, I understand. I would never want to get out of this Corvette, let alone lose it to a bank. I'll pay the note. I was eagerly pining to get inside the sweet red leather cockpit of my dream car. Sorry, my reality rocket. Not even caring about how serious Damien was being as I signed the contracts.
All right. As long as you understand those terms and conditions, let me get your okay on these documents, and then I'll get you down the road. Perfect. That's all of them. You ready?
So, what are you gonna do with my Camaro?
I have a buyer looking to add it to his collection.
Weird. Most people don't like the 4th Gen Z28s that much. Seconds later, I shrugged the thought off as he opened the Corvette door for me. The electric door pop sound was so cool. I was just thinking that it was gonna be weird not having a door handle, and then Damien said the second thing that should have made me nix the deal and run for my life.
Yeah, well, this guy loves collecting cars that have a sentimental value. In fact, he gets quite a few out of this area. I was just talking to him yesterday morning when he pulled up in this immaculate Monte Carlo. What a beauty that old car was. So sweet. A true classic. Well, Zeke, you enjoy that Corvette now. Not everybody gets to own their dream car.
A moment later, that unknown clue to my fate was passing into my fuel-filled forgetfulness as all 460 horsepower of the GS hit the highway screaming at my foot's command. The word exhilarating does not have enough characters in it to justify the look of pure joy that I'm sure was on my face as I drove back down to Morstan. Hell, my actions were garnering no concern from any cops, let alone my thoughts reasoning how this was even possible. I'd done the impossible. I'd finally gotten my dream car. And that feeling didn't end. The next week of vacation flew by, and not just because I was speeding all the time. I went to my first Corvette car meet, and I placed first for best in show. Later in the week, I met a girl outside the Viennese coffee shop by my apartment. We went for a ride or two, or three. I knew she was only digging the car. Her attitude shifted once I showed her my place.
What a gentleman.
Yeah, well, it was a few fun days, and you know what they say. You can't rush true love. And at that time, I was rushing everywhere I went. And then when my adrenaline was finally starting to recede, the voice started speaking to me.
The what?
A voice. Its first words were, "Faster, Zeke. Don't let him now." It was just a faint whisper, but it was fierce.
So, it was in the car, not in your head.
Yeah. It was a male voice, barely audible over the wind noise and my radio. At first, I thought it was in the song's vocal backing track and I was just misinterpreting the lyrics. So I pulled over, put the car's target top back on and shut the radio off. That didn't help. Now I knew I was losing it since the sound of the voice was crystal clear. I shouted back in frantic fear.
No, it can't be real.
I started thinking maybe it was the OnStar system. I had always heard that the government can track you through that thing. Or maybe it was my cell phone's Bluetooth connection. Just when my thoughts were starting to help me find reason, the voice shattered it.
You never activated the OnStar, Zeke, and your cell phone's dead. Now, let's go, before the 63 GS gets here.
Like a 1963 Grand Sport? No way. Those are rare cars. I've never seen one in real life. I believe only 5 exist, and none are in Texas. As if I could use my muscle car knowledge to shut it up. It didn't work.
We need the speed, Zeke. Go, go, go!
Fine. In less than 4 seconds, we were at almost 75 miles per hour, and I started laughing victoriously. Then the voice faded from the cabin.
Imbued undead consciousness. Ah, okay.
Yes. And just as I was nearing 120 miles per hour, I looked in the rearview mirror to see a 63 Grand Sport gaining on me. I was completely baffled as the car pulled up to me. I was hitting the 155 mile per hour mark. This was impossible. It was. Those old 63 Corvette Grand Sports are worth like, I don't know, $5 million a piece, and all of them are in different car museums all over the world. And plus, each of them was always some variation of a dark blue or light blue or white, and I think one had yellow wheels. But whatever the hell was going on, I'll tell you this much, this car played the part spec-wise. It looked just like one, except it was red and black. I thought it had to be someone in a replica or just a normal 1960s model that had been dolled up to look like a viciously vindictive version of the rare ride. Dude, this car was much in the same hue as mine, but it had all the legendary decals. They were just altered in their color, and the blacked out windows added to its mystery. I couldn't see the driver, but he decelerated to match my speed, which was dropping as the fear was increasing within my chest. The car started lunging forward, then braking hard as if its driver was egging me on, wanting to race. And after what felt like an eternity, the old Grand Sport grew impatient with my passiveness, and by the time my speed was down to 55 miles per hour, he gunned his hell wagon into the highway's distant horizon. Once he was out of my sight, I felt my sanity slowly setting back in, only to lose it again.
Come on, Zeke. You could have taken out that old antique race car. Way to puss out.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! I screamed at the top of my lungs as the other motorists were passing my supercar and pointing with laughter at my misery. I was now white-knuckled and barely coasting in the slow lane behind some old lady in a tan Buick. That was the last time I heard the voice for the next few days.
A few days. So what triggered its return?
It was my first day back at work. I was met by lots of smiles from the ladies in the dealership, but that was immediately offset by Mr. McGee, belligerently storming into my cubicle before I could even finish clocking in.
What the hell is that you pulled up in, Zeke?
Grover frantically bitched and whined, waving his chubby arms in the air. I felt like I could see his blood pressure rising the longer I sat there in silence, not answering him, but I eventually replied, in my best unwavering, cold-ass voice. A Corvette Grand Sport.
How in God's green glory did you afford something like that?
God had nothing to do with it. I shot back with an evil reflex, not even thinking about the words that I spoke.
Zeke, if you're skimming out the company books, I will find out!
Grover's face was contorting and gyrating and red with his anger. When I refused to speak again, he stormed out. On my way home that evening, I was stalked by the 63 GS for over 10 miles before it finally approached me. And then the voice broke its silence. And man, was it angry.
You're gonna let this guy humiliate you again? You gonna take it like you do from Grover? Stop being a punk. Go, go, go! Speed, Zeke!
I screamed like a madman, slamming my fist in the steering wheel as the voice lashed out in my hesitation to erase the blast from the past that was driving right beside me. You are in my head! And so is that car next to us!
No, Zeke, I am your car. I am your need for speed, and together we will blow your taste for the thrill of the chase.
This evil voice cackled through my car's interior with such power. So I yelled again, even louder. Then, as if under command, the 63 Grand Sport sped up, passing me, and a few seconds later, it vanished into the now setting sun.
He's getting away! Now let's go, Zeke. Maybe we'll still catch him.
I was nearing the exit from my apartment complex and more than ready to get out of the Corvette. But the voice wanted me to go after the classic Grand Sport.
Go exit now, we'll lose him again! No, Zeke, stay on the highway!
And the voice was roaring at me as I was exiting. I was so entranced by its mad raving that I almost hit the bright yellow crowbar that was just lying in the middle of the exit ramp. I pulled the car over and turned the flashers on. I was thinking that this must have fallen off a construction vehicle of some kind. My neighborhood was always under some sort of road expansion project by the city, and it was never complete. It just moved down the highway year after year. So I picked up the tool and put it in my car's back hatch. As soon as I popped the rear glass open, the voice started up again.
Aren't you just a good whittlesome militant? You're gonna pick up all that litter on the exit ramp too?
And the more and more I listened to the voice, the more and more it was driving itself into my brain, almost like the rising pressure of an impending migraine. So now the car was making me feel crazy and making me feel physical pain. Enough was enough. I was going to call up Damien and demand a buyback, but then, almost like the voice was trying to soothe me out of my decision, it started sweet-talking me with tempting thoughts.
Hey, Zeke. Don't be mad with me. I'll tell you what. Let's go back to that coffee shop and see if we can't pick you up some more of that emo tail. There's always plenty of it sitting around out there, and those little ladies love this ride, right? Remember last time? One ride always leads to another.
No! I'm done with this! I'm done with you! But just shut the hell up!
Did the voice listen to you?
No. But once I shut the car off in my driveway, the voice shut off as well. And then later, after I calmed down and the pressure in my brain started to waver, I decided to call Pineway. I didn't think they would take the car back, but I didn't want to believe what they told me either. The receptionist said that Damien wasn't there, so I figured maybe it was his day off, but she said he had only shown up for one Saturday and then was never heard from again. I was speechless. I mean, damn, I know turnover in the automotive dealer field is high, but this guy had seemed like a seasoned veteran, not a shy, unsure green pea. So I asked for a manager to discuss my loan agreement and to see if they still had my Camaro. I figured they'd already sold it to that buyer Damien had mentioned, but the sales manager said there was no record of my deal, trade, or any of my information in their system. I aggressively pursued him on how I had watched Damien enter the loan info to the bank, First Ratandon and Trust, and even signed documents with Pineway's letterhead. He just laughed it off and said that was impossible. Damien didn't sell anything the one day he worked, let alone a new Corvette Grand Sport. He went on to say that Pineway had never even had a Corvette in stock before, and that their inventory interest plan didn't support high-end Chevrolets, and that they didn't have a market for them anyway, and that it was just too richy of a car for us old folks on the lake. I asked if I could email him a copy of my contracts, and he said that I could fax it. He didn't do too good with emailing, He was a very old-sounding guy, so I wrote down the fax number and told him I'd send it over from my office the next day. And the last thing he said to me was that he had never heard of that bank's name, and that they had never used that financial institution. I didn't bother faxing him anything after what I uncovered next.
Which was?
When I pulled the paperwork from its envelope sleeve, it was covered in a very odd, clear liquid. However, the envelope it was housed in for over a week was dry. The only thing legible was my signature in dried blood at the bottom. I dropped the contract and goosebumps crawled up my arms and down my spine. I didn't know what to do. I was stuck with a new Corvette Grand Sport that I bought from an evil force. And then I remembered I still had Damien's card. And so I called him.
How's it going there, Zeke?
How's it going? You sold me a demon car. You fucking snake. It's like it's possessed by an evil spirit.
No, it's imbued with a temporary consciousness. And it will stay that way as long as you're making the payments on time.
Damien said this shit to me as if at the time that made any sense at all. The mild tone to his words really shook me to the core. All I could think was, what had I done?
Don't worry, Zeke, my boy. You have 45 days until your first payment, remember? Well, I guess it's a little closer than that now, though.
But this contract is not legal according to the laws in Texas. You weren't employed by that dealer at the time of my sale, according to Pineway's record, and that's the record a judge will go by when I take this to court. I don't know where I mustered the courage, let alone the information from. I assumed from somewhere buried within my vast knowledge of bookkeeping and dealership laws. My confidence was quickly broken by his deep laughter.
Your moral misguiding holds no merit over me. You are now bound by the contract of a much higher law. Don't forget how we pursue those first payment defaulters. So why don't you keep your head in the game? You don't want me to come collecting, Zeke boy!
But where do I pay? I did a quick search on the web and your bank doesn't exist.
Oh, we do exist. Let's just say I work for a very direct lender. First Rotandan and Trust will come to you. Just look for the 63 Grand Sport when you need to make a payment. I'll be waiting on the road. Until then, I'll send Zara your regards.
Zara? How does he know? What was he talking about? So, this was the road rage roamer in the old vet that was stalking me. And man, just when I thought I couldn't go any further into my mental breakdown and that it couldn't get any worse, it did.
That voice was inside of you now.
Yes, it was. And the following morning, I was fired from my job. And Mr. Grover McGee said it was due to an error found in the books I was managing, but I knew it was just the workings of an overzealous middle-aged loser. I was truly screwed. I could never make that payment now. And then he had the audacity to follow me out to my little red Corvette, apologizing the whole time, while I held my meager box of almost nothing. When I popped the hatch, he said this sure was a nice car. You believe that shit? So as you can imagine, now my blood was boiling. At this point, I'm not sure if it was my own personal anchor, the voice speaking as I lifted the glass hatch, or just the gleam of the yellow painted crowbar calling out for some justice. But I just gave in to all three.
I don't blame you. This liquid you speak of, it can be a psychotic infection if misused.
Well, then mine was definitely fucking misused, because after I set my box down in the car, the voice whispered to me, "Do it, Zeke. Hit him." I knew Grover didn't hear the whisper, because he was just leaning into the hatch, marveling at the leather-wrapped cabin. Before he could even mutter a complimentary insult like "nice leather," I decided to cut him off. I grabbed the yellow crowbar and raked it right across his rosy face. Before he could cry out, I cracked him right in the skull. Mr. McGee crumpled to the ground, deliriously moaning in pain and confusion. The voice boomed from the car louder than ever. "Kill him," as I brought down the force of my killing blow. The look on his face made me wonder if maybe, just maybe, he'd heard the possessed calling of my nice car. I didn't give it another thought. Crack after crack, I kept hitting his head until I finally felt the crowbar connecting with the concrete. I dropped the bloody bar, slammed down the vet's hatch, jumped into the driver's side of the beast of bludgeoning, and made my escape. Peeling out of the parking lot, my tires seemed a little slicker than normal, so my traction was a bit off before the power of the LT1 V8 made a connection with the freshly christened crimson concrete.
Disgusting.
Yep, it was. And I was on the highway to hell. Literally. The voice, or maybe it was me. Hell, it was probably both of us just screaming in triumph as we cleared onto the open, early afternoon road, which was empty, except for one familiar friend, just sitting, dead center in the highway, idling and waiting. I pulled up, redlined my revving engine at this man who had ties to everything wrong with my life. The Corvette's wicked voice was now echoing in unison with my own. "You want to go? Then let's go." Let's go! My battle cry didn't go unanswered. The 63 Grand Sport pulled up to evenly match my 17 Grand Sport. And I heard the voice break from shouting, just for a moment, to whisper a 4 count to launch. I heard the voice sneer a wicked 1, 2, 3, go! And Damien must have had something similar because we launched at the same time. The sound of exhaust systems must have been something of a performance masterpiece. The echoing of the 63 muscle-driven notes mixing with the 2017's modern modes of melody. We were evenly matched for the first quarter mile, and then the uncompromising power of my new age small block engine into the closeness and started pulling away into the lead. I don't know how fast I was going at this point because I was too drunk on adrenaline to concentrate on anything except what was between my white-knuckle grasp of the leather wheel. The voice was booming with glee now, completely entrenched and interwoven into my soul. The Grand Sport and I were now one. Just as I was finally enjoying my harmonious horsepower, my cosmic contender pulled out of my peripheral to start taking a lead. It was at this time that I noticed I had hit 200 miles per hour. Well, at least I knew the brochure wasn't lying. I thought laughingly to myself. Then my opponent lowered his window to reveal a red-eyed, peeling, burnt skin, dead-faced version of myself. I was dumbstruck, man. I shook it off, and the face faded into Damien's ghastly grin. And once I looked back to the road, I saw a large yellow crowbar speckled with dots of red on it, mysteriously in my path. I tried to maneuver out of the way, but it was too late. I oversteered and clipped it with the edge of my tire. And with the car's system in track mode, I was powerless against gravity. And within milliseconds of my manic maneuver, I was airborne, flipping through the Texas sky.
Damn.
Yeah, exactly. Damn. Right? And when I made my impact, my now destroyed Corvette was resting on its roof. I was crushed. My legs were birthing bones through shredded skin. The blood was mixing with the gasoline pouring into the cabin. Oddly, I began to hear the synthesized opening notes of Little Red Corvette starting to come from my car speakers at a very minimal volume. I was thinking of Zara as my mouth was filling with blood. The song was interrupted by the screeching drift of Damien's '63 Corvette as he slid it to rest beside my wreckage, parking sideways as he opened his door. The red and black leather coverall he was wearing was unzipped enough for me to see the red tuxedo-styled suit underneath. The same one he wore that night at the dealership. I started to sputter out my gargled blood as Prince serenaded me against my approaching reaper.
I guess you should have known by the way your car was parked sideways that night, Zeke, that this wouldn't last.
Damien mocked the 80s hit, taking a puff from his cigarette as I was choking to death on my own blood.
Now, I know you can't talk due to your currently illegally parked situation, but I just wanted to say...
Laura! Tears welled up in my eyes. And as they released, it flushed some of the oil and blood out of them.
Well, damn, you can talk! Tough as nails, my boy. And yes, sir! Zara indeed. That little angel has been keeping me from you for years now. But your greedy dream finally prevailed, Zeke boy! Yep, little brother. Your beautiful little road angel had been watching over you since I rammed her little Monte Carlo into a spin so many years ago. It wasn't nothing personal against her. My buyer just wanted that Detroit metal your whole family was so in love with. She just happened to be the person in it when I struck. What's that? I can't understand you through all that dying you got going on. Sorry, boy. This here imbued little red rocket, well, it blocked out what little protection she was offering you from the grave. And now, my friend, your journey is just beginning! After all, it looks like you will not be making that first payment. But it's all okay, Zeke. These roads are due for a newer grand sport anyway. Don't worry. One day you will find your replacement. Well, maybe. Hey, at least you will be in your dream car forever now.
Damien's words echoed with Prince's lyrics all around me. Then he flicked his cigarette into the wreckage. I heard him whistling the same tune as he got into his Grand Sport, then fired it over and peeled off as mine slowly ignited all around me. As I was lying there, I realized that little red Corvette was still playing. I was in my dream car, and I felt a grin filling my face, ear to ear, before I exploded into this cursed immortality.
That was a hell of a story.
Oh, nice pun, Mr.
Dr. Johnny Stitches.
Sirenicide sent its main guy after me. Wow.
Yes, indeed. So, do you know where Damien Levante is now?
Not for me, but for him. I see. Well, I suppose he is back in hell. I've never seen him again since I was brought back from there.
Fair enough. Any last words?
Yeah. Will you take care of my car after I'm dead? It can still shift in and out of Scary. And the liquid burned up within my hellish baptism.
Sure. Where is it now?
In Scary. I was here and it was left on that side when the soul lock was triggered. And as a mortal, I can't retrieve it.
I will take care of it. I promise. Now, is that it? Are you ready?
Do you think that I'll see Zara again?
No. Not after all the lives you've wasted as a devil. Honestly, I don't know where your kind goes now. That hell's door is locked.
All right, Dr. Stitches. Here's to the unknown, then.
To the unknown.
All elements of Sirenicide are copyright 2019 by Atrium Dynamics unless otherwise stated. Any duplication of this production without the secured written consent of Atrium Dynamics is strictly prohibited. Please visit Sirenicide.com for more details.